think without question nuclear is an important part of our overall energy demand, but that demand is only going to be met through a comprehensive energy portfolio that includes all of the above. Nuclear today is 20% of our energy and yet 70% of our clean energy. It's a base power, the only form of which that produces no greenhouse gases or other regulated pollutants while producing power. It's an enormous source of good and high-paying jobs. It's very secure and very safe, and on a per-kilowatt basis, nuclear is among the least expensive sources of power. All those things make it important that we continue to keep nuclear as a significant part of our whole energy portfolio.
Nuclear energy is a very important part of the United States electricity mix, and it's important to have a mix of technologies. Each technology for generating electricity, whether it's nuclear or hydroelectric or gas plants or coal plants, have their own strengths and weaknesses. Nuclear has a lot of strengths. It is safe, it is clean, it is reliable, it runs 24/7, and it is reasonably low cost. Nuclear energy is clean because it doesn't emit its waste into the environment like, for example, fossil fuels do with their smoke and their greenhouse gases, etc., being put directly into the air. Nuclear waste is contained and is not let into the environment, and therefore it is clean.
Nuclear energy is the only form of base power that releases no greenhouse gases or other regulated air pollutants while it's producing power. That is a huge advantage. For the United States, it's 20% of our overall energy, but 70% of our clean energy. The good news for the American nuclear industry and for the people here is that our industry is probably the safest in the world. It's the most heavily regulated. Both the industry and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission are always looking and constantly researching better ways to protect our citizens and our reactors and how best to store the waste that we have, and they are being currently stored safely on site, and our reactors are extremely safe. They are patrolled by security teams, by cameras. They have all kinds of hard and soft defenses built into them.
It is safe because all you have to do is look at the statistics of worker safety and the people living near the plant. No one is being harmed by nuclear energy, whereas fossil fuels do cause harm to health, and that is one reason why we should emphasize nuclear energy in the future. Virtually all the nuclear waste that has ever been created is safely and securely contained in large containers weighing 80 tons, where it cannot leak out and will hopefully eventually be recycled. So, whereas other technologies do emit their waste into the environment on a routine basis, nuclear energy does not. The fact that we can recycle the used nuclear fuel time after time after time, eventually getting as much as 100 times as much energy out of the fuel as we got in the first pass through the reactor, is why we will have nuclear fuel for thousands of years. But it's not time sensitive. There is still lots of uranium in the Earth's crust being mined, and in fact it is less expensive to purchase new uranium than it is to recycle the existing used nuclear fuel. But one day, 50, 100 years from now, it may be that long before we get into wide-scale recycling, but we will eventually. All the more reason to start with research and development and pilot projects now for the day when we will certainly be recycling the used fuel, extending its life for thousands of years. What we really need to do is to store the used nuclear fuel safely and securely until such time as we decide to recycle it and get the tremendous amount more energy out of that used fuel than it contains. Because we should not be looking at used nuclear fuel just as nuclear waste. There's a little waste in it, but it is actually one of the most important future energy resources we have in the country.
Actually, on a per kilowatt basis, nuclear comes out at the top there. It is very inexpensive, far less than coal, oil, or gas, and you can make long-term contracts for uranium and nuclear so that you can lock in a price and be sure that you're not going to be subject to the same kind of fluctuations you are with gas in particular. There's an enormous potential for new jobs in the nuclear industry. You have almost 35% of the force ready to retire within the next 5 years. So even if you didn't bring on another kilowatt of new nuclear power, you're going to need more nuclear engineers, everyone that works at a nuclear facility. You're going to need all of them. And those jobs pay on a tradition about 30% more than a similar job in that neighborhood, in that area in which the nuclear facility is located. Each one of our nuclear reactors puts off about $40 million in wages and benefits to the people who work there. So these are good jobs. They're jobs that aren't going to go anywhere. And what we need to do is ensure that we have the best possible kind of relationship between the private sector and the public sector and our schools and universities, our colleges and universities, so we can be training that next generation of those who will work in nuclear plants.
There are great benefits to living near a nuclear power plant. There's a saying, the closer you live to a nuclear plant, the better the roads and schools are. That's because of the huge tax base that comes from hundreds of very well-paid workers in the plant, and that goes out into the community with people buying things and paying their taxes. It is also very clean near a nuclear plant. There's no smoke coming out of the plant. So it's a kind of energy generating technology that people like to live near. In fact, a poll done of nuclear sites across the United States shows that within 10 miles of the nuclear plant, not including the people who work at the plant, 80% of people support nuclear energy. That is more by a considerable amount than the average for the country. So basically, the closer people live to nuclear plants, the more they like them. Nuclear power plants are good neighbors because they do not emit pollution into the air. They are clean. They operate clean and quietly as well. So there is no disturbance to the community from a nuclear plant. In addition, the people who work in the plants are generally quite highly educated people that make very good wages and become good contributors and good citizens in their communities. A nuclear plant is one of the best neighbors you can have.
Interestingly enough, even after Fukushima Daiichi, the American people support nuclear. A recent study found that over 70% of the American people thought nuclear should continue to be a part of our overall energy mix. And that was right on the heels, actually, of Fukushima Daiichi, without a long period of time for people to understand all the additional steps that both the industry and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission have taken and are taking to enhance the security around our facilities.
Well, as an environmentalist, I support nuclear power because it is clean and sustainable, which I believe are the two most important characteristics of energy technology. It's clean because it has no emissions coming out to pollute the air or water, and it's sustainable because there's enough fuel to last for thousands of years. Long after the fossil fuels have been depleted, nuclear energy will be there to run our civilization. All the more important why we should work hard now to make it even safer, cleaner, more reliable, more cost-effective, because we're going to be using it for thousands of years.